The movie begins with a scene where a man named Gary is shown running frantically through a train station, seemingly terrified of something. He rushes into a locked room, breaks the lock, and gets inside. Once in the room, he tries to escape through the window, but realizes it's impossible. As he remains in the room, the doors of the lockers suddenly open, and Gary sees his own reflection in the mirrors attached to them. As he approaches a large mirror in front of him, he says, "I didn't try to escape." Suddenly, the mirror cracks. In his frustration, Gary throws the mirror, causing a shard of glass to fall to the floor. As he kneels down to pick up the glass, we notice that the reflection of Gary in the mirror starts to behave strangely. The reflection then grabs a shard of glass and slits its own throat. At that moment, Gary's real throat also gets cut, and he dies instantly. The scene transitions, and we are introduced to Ben, who is preparing to leave for a trip. He wakes up his younger sister, Angela, and then he leaves the house. Ben then arrives at a large building, rings the bell, and is led inside by the caretaker, Lorenzo. The building appears to be severely fire damaged, almost entirely destroyed. Lorenzo refers to it as the Mayflower, a structure that used to be the Matthew Hospital before the Meredith family purchased it in 1952. Ben asks Lorenzo how the mirrors in such a ruined building remain so clean. Lorenzo explains that Gary, the night shift worker before you, took great care in cleaning them. During their conversation, Lorenzo asks Ben why he quit his job as a detective. Ben doesn't respond, and they leave the building to head toward their living quarters. In a later scene, we see Ben's wife, Amy, entering their home with some groceries. Ben has just returned home and is having fun with their son, Michael, and daughter, Daisy. Through a conversation between Ben and Amy, we learn that Ben left his job as a detective because, during one of his cases, he accidentally killed someone, which is why he quit. That night, Ben prepares for his first shift at his new job. His duty is to guard the Mayflower during the night. Since there's no electricity in the building, he carries a flashlight and begins his rounds. While inspecting the building, he notices a handprint on one of the mirrors. When he tries to wipe the mark of a hand, he finds that the marks of such a hand are all over the mirror. The next night, Ben returns to continue his rounds, and as he inspects various parts of the building, he sees another large mirror with a handprint. When he touches the handprint, the mirror cracks, cutting his hand. As he pulls his hand away and looks into the mirror again, he sees a woman standing behind him, engulfed in flames and screaming. But when he turns around, there's no one there. The woman only appears in the mirror. Ben, feeling the heat and pain, realizes that while he's not physically on fire, the sensation is very real. As he searches the building further, he finds Gary's wallet under a table. He leaves the building, goes to a rest area, and tends to the wound on his hand. While examining the wallet, he finds a piece of paper with the name Esseker written on it. Ben, now back inside the building, hears a woman screaming. As he searches for the source of the noise, he finds the room from which the scream is coming. However, when he enters, the screaming stops. He thoroughly inspects the room, but finds nothing unusual. Just as he's about to leave, he notices a hand briefly appear in a mirror, but the figure only exists within the reflection, and when Ben moves closer, it vanishes. Then, as he looks into the mirror more carefully, he sees a partially burned woman, screaming in agony from being caught in a fire. Terrified by the sight, Ben runs out of the room. Later, we see this same burned woman appear in Michael's bedroom mirror, hinting at something sinister. Ben, seeking answers, visits his sister Angela at her workplace, a bar, and tells her about the strange events he's witnessed. Angela, however, doesn't believe him, thinking he's just exhausted and seeing things due to stress. Meanwhile, Ben receives a parcel from Gary, which contains several old newspaper clippings about a fire at the Mayflower building. Ben, becoming more concerned, goes to see Lorenzo, whereupon Lorenzo says that Gary has already passed away. This brings back memories of the movie's opening scene, where we saw Gary's death. Upon further investigation, Ben learns that Gary had slit his own throat with a shard of glass before dying. Ben, still desperate to figure out what's happening, convinces Amy to help him access some of the official reports related to Gary's death. Initially reluctant, Amy eventually agrees, though the process causes tension between them. That night, as Angela prepares to take a shower, her mouth is ripped off by her own reflection in the bathroom mirror. Even the police officers who come to investigate are scared to see her dead. The next morning, Ben comes home to find his sister dead. Shaken by Angela's death, Ben becomes convinced that all of these events are linked to the mirrors in the Mayflower building. Determined to destroy them, he shoots at the mirrors, but the bullets have no effect. Frustrated and desperate, he shouts, "What do you want from me?" To his shock, the mirror responds by showing the name Esseker. Ben begins an intense investigation into the name Esseker. His search leads him to the person who caused the fire at the Mayflower, Terrence Berry. But when Ben looks into Terrence's past, he learns that Terrence died years ago. Ben also discovers disturbing footage that suggests his family, including Amy and Michael, might be in danger. Fearing for their safety, he rushes to Amy's home and removes every mirror he can find. For those mirrors he can't physically remove, he paints over them. Amy, arriving home, is confused and angry about Ben's actions. Then Ben takes Amy out of the house with a mirror and shoots the mirror like it was done in the Mayflower. Then the mirror breaks, so Ben apologizes to Amy and leaves. Ben continues his investigation and eventually returns to the Mayflower building, making his way down to the basement. There, he finds a hidden passage that leads him to an old plaque labeled Matthews Hospital. As he breaks through the wall, he finds a room completely filled with mirrors. Later, with the help of his friend Larry, Ben uncovers the identity of Esseker as Anna Esseker, a patient from the Matthews Hospital. Larry reveals that Anna was once a patient at the hospital, but at age 12, during a controversial experiment conducted by Dr. Kane, Anna was thought to have died. However, when Ben digs deeper, he learns that Anna didn't die. She simply disappeared after the experiment. Meanwhile, Amy, back at home, notices Michael acting strangely in front of the mirror. Startled, she calls Ben in a panic. He rushes back to the house, and together they cover all the mirrors with paint and newspaper, removing any reflective surfaces they can find. Ben then sets off to Pennsylvania with the goal of finding Anna. Upon arriving, he visits the Esseker farm, pretending to investigate Anna. He asks all sorts of questions about her, and eventually, after much difficulty, finds out where she is. When Ben finally meets Anna, he explains everything that has happened and the danger his family is in. Anna, in turn, reveals details about her past and how the mirrors are connected to these events. Despite Ben's pleas for help, Anna refuses to get involved. Meanwhile, Ben calls Amy, waking her up, only to find that Michael is missing from the bed. Amy starts searching for him and notices water flooding the house. She goes to the bathroom to close the taps, and as she leans over the bathtub, her face gets submerged in the water. At the same time, Daisy, who had been sleeping until now, wakes up and starts looking for Amy. She walks toward a mirror, but just as Amy's reflection is about to slit Daisy's throat, Amy manages to break free from the water and saves her just in time. Amy takes Daisy to a mirror-free room and locks the door, then continues her search for Michael. Amy soon finds Michael standing in front of a mirror, holding a knife. She tries to talk to him, asking him to come to her, but instead, Michael runs off. Meanwhile, Ben has managed to convince Anna to help, and they head back to the Mayflower building together. As soon as Anna steps inside, the mirrors begin acting strangely. Ben takes Anna down to the basement, to the room full of mirrors. Following Anna's instructions, he ties her to a chair with her eyes closed, and she starts convulsing. At the same time, Michael, who had been sitting in water, is approached by Amy, but suddenly, Michael submerges himself in the water, as if drowning. Back in the Mayflower, Ben leaves the room, and at that moment, the spirits trapped in the mirrors start to possess Anna's body. As Anna becomes possessed, all the mirrors in the Mayflower building shatter, and Amy is able to save Michael from drowning. Ben returns to check on Anna, only to find that she is no longer tied to the chair. Anna, now grotesquely disfigured, attacks Ben. Although Ben tries to shoot her, the bullets have no effect. Anna continues to assault him, dragging him. In a desperate struggle, Ben manages to free himself and strikes back, ultimately causing an explosion by shooting a gas pipe. The entire place goes up in flames. Even as he escapes, Anna attacks him again, but a large section of debris falls on her, pinning her down. Later, when Ben runs to save his life, a piece of debris falls on his body. The next morning, Ben emerges from the ruined Mayflower building. Police officers and other onlookers have gathered around, but strangely, no one seems to notice Ben. He sees Lorenzo, one of his friends, and tries to speak with him. But when he looks at Lorenzo's uniform, he notices that Lorenzo's name tag is written backward, as if viewed through a mirror. Everything around Ben now seems mirrored. Even a scar that was once on his left hand is now on his right. As Ben steps away, he places his hand on a glass window, and the movie reveals that the reflection we see is now the real world for Ben. The film ends, leaving the audience with an eerie sense of mystery about what truly happened to Ben. Did you enjoy this movie? Stay tuned for more recaps and special features with Cinema Recap. Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon for more videos. See you soon. Goodbye.